A glittering, gold-wrapped box arrived for my daughter's birthday, but even before I touched it, I knew something was wrong. It smelled like money and memory. The delivery guy stood awkwardly in the doorway of our modest two-bedroom apartment in southeast Portland, holding a package that seemed wildly out of place against the backdrop of our simple life. Outside, a light spring drizzle tapped against the windows, matching the unease creeping into my chest. "Delivery for Lily Quinn?" He checked the label, shifting the ornate box in his arms. "That's my daughter." I hesitated before signing. April 7th. Lily's birthday wasn't until Friday. Still 2 days away. I took the heavy package inside, setting it on our kitchen counter. The wrapping paper alone probably cost more than the dollar store decorations I'd carefully arranged throughout the apartment for Lily's upcoming Magical Creatures and Moons birthday party. 6 kids, a public park, and a custom cake I'd paid for in 3 installments. It was modest but meaningful. That's how we lived now. "She doesn't need extravagance," I whispered to myself. "She needs stability. I'm her constant." The return address read, The Whitakers, Lexington, Massachusetts. My parents. Charles and Eleanor Whitaker, banking executive and social climber respectively. The architects of my childhood under crushing expectations, perfection or silence. Their praise was always conditional, their affection measured in achievements. I'd escaped to college in California and never truly returned. The relationship deteriorated further when I married Eric. They attended the wedding but gifted a check with a note. "For the day you wake up." When our marriage failed after I discovered his affair with a gallery owner, their response was predictably cold. "We warned you." Since then, communication had dwindled to yearly holiday cards. They hadn't called for Lily's birthday in 2 years. Last year, they sent nothing at all. I was inspecting the package when the front door burst open. "Mom, I'm home!" 7-year-old Lily exploded into the room, her backpack dangling from one arm, raincoat dripping on the floor. Her eyes landed immediately on the gold package. "What's that?" "It came for you. From your grandparents." "Grandma and Grandpa sent it?" Her eyes widened with genuine excitement that made my stomach twist. "Can I open it? Please?" I should have said no. I should have examined it first. But her face, so hopeful, so innocent, weakened my resolve. "It's not even your birthday yet," I said, already reaching for my phone. "But okay. Let me film it to send them a thank you." Lily tore into the wrapping like a wild animal, squealing as the contents were revealed. A couture-level pink dress with a tulle skirt, pearl-trimmed bodice, and embroidered constellations. It was exquisite, something straight from a celebrity child's wardrobe. "It's the prettiest thing I've ever seen, Mommy." She twirled, clutching it against her chest. For a brief, dangerous moment, I let myself believe. Maybe they're finally trying to show up for her. Maybe this is their way of making amends. But as Lily danced in front of our hallway mirror, she suddenly paused mid-twirl. Her face changed, fingers scratching at the collar. "Mommy? What's this? It's itchy." I knelt beside her, examining the spot she indicated, and that's when I saw it. A thin piece of paper, carefully stitched into the inner seam behind the collar tag. I removed it gently, recognizing my father's handwriting on one side, my mother's on the other. The message hit me like ice water. "Ask your mother why she hides you from the family who loves you more." My blood ran cold. "What is it, Mommy?" "Just a care tag, sweetie." The lie came quickly. My face a carefully constructed mask of calm. "Let's save the dress for your party, okay?" Later that night, after tucking Lily into bed, I sat alone in the living room with the dress spread across our coffee table. The soft fabric couldn't hide its sharp intent. This wasn't just a gift. It was a weapon. I began inspecting every inch with surgical precision, running my fingers along each seam, checking behind every button and bow. I found a second note, then a third, then more. One in the hem, one inside a tiny bow, one behind a button. 12 in total, each one colder than the last. Love isn't sewn with thread, it's sewn with motives. And now I was holding 13 of them in my hand, disguised as grandmotherly care. I laid out all 12 notes like evidence at a crime scene, arranging them in the order I'd found them. Each one contained some form of manipulation, promise, or subtle psychological sabotage. We have a trust for you, Lily, but your mother won't accept it. Your father didn't leave you. She pushed him away. Your real life is waiting. Better schools, ballet lessons, private trips to Italy. We miss you terribly, if only we were allowed to. She failed us. Don't let her fail you too. Some were in my mother's flowing cursive, others in my father's tight block script. Their handwriting was as familiar to me as their tactics. I was angry, furious actually, but my mind stayed strategic. This wasn't my first psychological warfare with Charles and Eleanor Whitaker. I methodically photographed each note with timestamps and created an encrypted folder on my phone titled Documented Manipulation. The dress went into a sealed bag. Evidence. This was just the latest chapter in their lifetime of toxic gifting. When I was 9, they gave me a red bike, but locked it in the garage, only allowing me to use it when my grades were perfect. At 16, it was a used car, but enrollment in my father's SAT boot camp came with it. For college, they offered full tuition, but only if I majored in finance instead of pursuing my passion for art. I took secret design classes anyway. When my mother found out, my allowance was cut immediately. My wedding gift was $15,000 with notes suggesting I start my life wisely. When Eric and I spent it on an art studio and modest honeymoon, our relationship with my parents froze over entirely. Now I understood the pattern with painful clarity. This wasn't just about criticizing my parenting. They wanted custodial influence over Lily. The dress wasn't just manipulation, it was a test probe. Would Lily respond? Would I react? Would Eric back them up? The next morning, Lily looked up from her cereal, eyes wide with innocent curiosity. "Mommy, why don't Grandma and Grandpa visit?" I chose my words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups have to take space to be better versions of themselves. She stirred her spoon, considering this. Then, "But the dress said you keep me away." Those 7 words shattered something in me. They'd already planted seeds of doubt in my child's mind. That night, after Lily was asleep, I called Jessica Brown, my best friend since college. "They're escalating," I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts to control it. "They crossed the line. They're trying to get to her directly." "Do not let them see her." Jessica's voice was firm. "This isn't family, it's control." My suspicion deepened when I found another note hidden within the hem of the dress, this one containing a bank account routing number. I ran it through an online bank lookup and discovered it belonged to a Massachusetts-based trust firm. When I called anonymously, they confirmed that a fund titled LQ Education Escrow existed, but access required guardian release and reassignment of custodial advisor. Lily's initials. They'd set up a financial trap. With growing dread, I called Eric after months of no contact. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice immediately wary. "Yeah, your dad called me," he admitted after several minutes of evasion. "Said they could help with Lily's future. They asked if I'd sign some stuff to make it easier on everyone." My heart pounded. "Did you?" He didn't answer directly. "They made some good points about her education, Marissa. Private school would give her opportunities we can't." "Did you sign anything?" I interrupted, each word precise. His silence was answer enough. After hanging up, Something in me shifted, not toward fear, but toward resolve. I opened an old file from my therapist titled Setting Parental Boundaries, a Survival Guide, and wrote a list. Who do I need on my side? What legal options do I have? What's the end goal? I made appointments with my lawyer, Nora Greaves, and my therapist, Dr. Felton. Then I took out the notes again, reading them aloud while recording. My voice was calm, clear, and shaking just a little. This wasn't just about me anymore. Friday morning, Lily's actual birthday, arrived with a cool spring breeze. As I prepared her special birthday pancakes, I noticed an envelope that had been slipped through our mail slot. No stamp. Hand-delivered. Inside was just one note, unsigned. This is just the beginning. I stood frozen in our tiny kitchen, the morning light streaming through the window, illuminating the elegant handwriting I knew too well. This wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. This was a threat. "Mommy, are those birthday pancakes?" Lily bounded into the kitchen, still in her space-themed pajamas, hair wild from sleep. I quickly tucked the note into my pocket and turned to her with a smile that felt stretched thin across my face. "Happy birthday, sweetie. 8 space pancakes for my 8-year-old space explorer." As she climbed onto her stool at the counter, chattering excitedly about her birthday plans, I couldn't help but notice how her eyes occasionally drifted to the hall closet where I'd hidden the dress. They'd already gotten into her head. The thought made my chest tighten. "Will Grandma and Grandpa call today?" she asked suddenly, looking up at me with those innocent eyes. I busied myself with the syrup bottle. "I don't think they will, sweetie. They're busy with something important." What I didn't say: they're not calling. They're positioning. After breakfast, I dropped Lily at school with extra hugs and watched until she disappeared inside the building. Only then did I pull out my phone and call Nora. "They've escalated," I said without preamble. "I need to know my options." "Come to my office at noon," Nora said, her voice steady. "Bring everything you've found so far." I hung up and sat in my car, staring at the school building where my daughter was now safely tucked away. Safe for now, at least. My parents had always taught me that family was everything, that blood mattered above all else. But as I looked down at the note in my hand, "This is just the beginning," I realized they'd never truly understood what family meant. Family doesn't threaten. Family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't use a child as a pawn. I started the car, determination hardening in my chest. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. But not on their terms. Not with their weapons. This time, I'd be fighting with the truth. And the truth was far more damaging than any lie they could stitch into a pretty dress. It's not paranoia when someone's already building your downfall behind your back and signing it with your blood. I tried to make Lily's birthday special despite the storm brewing around us. She woke early, beaming with excitement, wearing the handmade tiara I'd crafted from wire and rhinestones bought at the craft store. Her space-themed shirt, another dollar store find I'd embellished myself, sparkled in the morning light. "Do you think Grandma will call this year?" she asked as I brushed her hair, her voice hopeful. I swallowed hard. "I don't think they will, sweetie. They're busy with something important." What I didn't tell her: they're not calling. They're positioning. After dropping Lily at school, I returned home to find the unstamped envelope in our mail slot. Cream-colored cardstock, handwriting deliberately disguised but unmistakably intentional. Inside was a typed message. "This is only the beginning. You had your chance. We are ready to do what's necessary." No signature, but unmistakably a threat. I scanned our doorway, checking the security camera I'd installed months ago. The footage showed static interference for a 2-minute window. Someone had tampered with it. Professional. Calculated. My hands shook as I called Nora Greaves. "I need you to document everything. she instructed after I explained the situation. Take photos, preserve the note, install backup surveillance immediately, file a police report, not for prosecution yet, but to establish a record. Then she delivered the blow I'd been dreading. Marissa, there's something else. A temporary guardianship motion has been pre-filed by Charles Whitaker in Massachusetts 2 weeks ago. It cites psychological instability and financial neglect as grounds. Eric Callan is listed as a co-signatory guardian. The room seemed to tilt. A hearing date? April 23rd, 2 weeks from now. I hung up and drove straight to Eric's studio. He was in the back, working on one of his mediocre sculptures when I burst through the door. You signed custody papers for my parents? My voice was eerily calm. He flinched, looking everywhere but at me. It's complicated, Marissa. Uncomplicated. As he talked, I secretly recorded on my phone. He admitted everything. My father had offered him $40,000 to support their petition. He felt pressured and guilty, but had signed anyway. They said they could give her what we couldn't. He justified weakly. My hands were shaking, but my voice remained composed. You just gave them permission to erase me. I left without another word. The evidence safely recorded. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from a private number. You don't know me, but I used to work for Eleanor. I know what they're doing. The woman who called herself Aubrey Stanton had been hired as a nanny when I was pregnant with Lily. She'd worked for my mother for 6 months before being fired under mysterious circumstances. What she revealed chilled me to the bone. I was present during early planning sessions, she explained. Your mother was explicit about creating future contingencies involving Lily. What kind of contingencies? I asked, pacing my living room. I once overheard Eleanor bragging to a friend. If she breaks down, custody won't be a battle. We just need her to snap. Aubrey paused. During your last holiday visit when you were pregnant, she slipped supplements into your tea. Something to provoke anxiety or mood instability. I have photos, logs. I'm willing to testify. After hanging up, I considered running, disappearing with Lily somewhere they couldn't find us. But Dr. Felton's voice of reason pulled me back from the edge during our emergency phone session. You've done everything right, she reminded me. They're the ones crossing legal and ethical lines. This is not the time to disappear. This is the time to document and strike. I spent the night building a timeline of abuse for my lawyer. 2002-2018, emotional conditioning via conditional love, psychological guilt. 2019, financial cutoff after I supported Eric's art studio. 2021, divorce finalized. Charles offers fresh start package if I move to Boston. Job, apartment, school. I refuse. 2022-2023. Sparse contact, but gift manipulation begins again. 2024. Now. Weaponized birthday dress, pre-filed court case, bribery of ex-husband, threats, surveillance interference. Something shifted in me that night. I evolved from reaction to strategy. I began storing documents both digitally and physically, with backups going to Jessica and Nora. The dress went into a vacuum-sealed bag, preserved as physical evidence. When Lily came home from school, I held her close, whispering into her hair, "There are some people who love you in broken ways, but I won't let them break us." She looked up at me, confused but trusting. Is this about the dress? Sort of, I admitted, but nothing for you to worry about. The next day was Saturday, Lily's birthday party at the park. Despite everything, I was determined to give her the celebration she deserved. But I took precautions. I hired a private security firm to watch from a distance, disguised as photographers. I bought a GPS clip to put in Lily's dress, not from paranoia, but prevention. I pruned the guest list, keeping only Jessica and her daughter among the trusted adults. As I frosted cupcakes that night, Lily already asleep in her bedroom surrounded by her new toys, my phone buzzed with another text from Aubrey. You need to see what they planned next. Check your inbox. The attached document made my blood run cold. A scanned draft of a court document titled, Emergency Petition to Assume Custody, expedited due to imminent harm. They weren't just trying to get visitation. They were trying to take her completely. I stared at the document, the words blurring through my tears. Then I straightened my spine, wiped my face, and picked up my phone. It was time to set a trap. I composed an email to my parents, my fingers steady despite the rage building inside me. I think it's time we had a mature adult discussion about Lily's future. I'm willing to meet you for dinner tomorrow at the Langridge Hotel restaurant in downtown Portland, 4:30 p.m. Lily won't be there. Let's see if we can resolve this without further escalation. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I called Nora and Jessica, explaining my plan. Don't let your emotions control the scene, Nora advised. This isn't about them. It's about Lily. Jessica was more direct. Record everything. And don't go alone. I spent the rest of the night preparing for war. I selected a crisp navy blazer and minimalist makeup, projecting control, not vulnerability. I gathered my evidence, tablet with scanned copies of all 13 notes, the secret recording of Eric's confession, printouts of Aubrey's testimony, and copies of the trust fund routing information. I had Nora on speed dial. As I finally lay down to sleep, I thought about how my parents had always taught me that appearances matter above all else, that control equals love, that manipulation is just strategy. They'd spent a lifetime grooming me to accept their poison as medicine, but they'd never anticipated I would develop immunity. They'd never expected I would fight back, and they certainly never imagined I would win. Tomorrow, I would finally show them exactly who I'd become without their approval, and exactly how far I would go to protect my daughter from their toxic legacy. Some family meetings happen over brunch. Others are pre-battles dressed as polite conversations. This one, it was war wrapped in wine menus. I arrived at the Langridge Hotel 30 minutes early, scanning the restaurant with practiced precision. The corner table beneath the surveillance camera was perfect, secluded enough for a private conversation but public enough for safety. I positioned myself facing the entrance and waited, a glass of water untouched before me. At precisely 4:30, they appeared. My parents always valued punctuality above humanity. Charles Whitaker strode in first, tall, imposing in his tailored gray suit, silver hair perfectly coiffed. Eleanor followed, her Chanel outfit probably worth more than 3 months of my rent. They spotted me immediately, their expressions a practiced mix of concern and disappointment. "Where's our birthday girl?" Eleanor's voice dripped with false sweetness as they approached. "This meeting is about boundaries, not photo opportunities," I replied, not rising to greet them. Charles didn't bother with pleasantries. "You've kept her from us long enough. This is about what's best for her." I gestured for them to sit, then placed my tablet on the table. "Before we begin, I have something I'd like to discuss." With deliberate slowness, I laid out the printed notes from the dress. "Tell me, which one of these was meant to help Lily feel loved?" Eleanor's face remained impressively composed as she glanced at the notes. "She's curious, that's all. Children should know their options." "Options?" I arched an eyebrow. "Like the fake trust fund you created? The one that only transfers if custodial rights are reassigned?" Charles scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "We're offering a future. You're clinging to the past." I pulled out my phone and played part of Eric's confession, keeping the volume low. The color drained from Eleanor's face as Eric's voice admitted they'd paid him to support their custody petition. "You always were dramatic, Marissa," Charles said after a moment of silence. "You twist things to feel attacked." Eleanor leaned forward, her voice honeyed poison. We just wanted her to know she has options. Is that so terrible? To want what's best for our granddaughter? I produced Aubrey's signed statement next, not showing it yet, but referencing it. You drugged me during Christmas 2 years ago. Don't deny it. Eleanor froze. Charles tightened his jaw. You bribed my ex. You filed a secret court case. You've monitored my daughter's school. I continued, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. If you think you're walking out of here with visitation rights, you're mistaken. Charles slammed his hand on the table hard enough to draw attention from nearby diners. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us? Everything comes with strings in your world, I replied, unflinching. But Lily isn't a puppet. Eleanor's eyes narrowed to slits. You'll regret turning our granddaughter against us. She doesn't even know you, I said simply, and after this, she never will. I handed them an envelope containing a letter drafted by Nora. Any future communication must go through legal channels. If you violate my custody rights or approach Lily without permission, I'll file for a restraining order. I paused, letting the threat sink in. I'll also release public video evidence and press charges for emotional manipulation. Charles's face flushed an alarming shade of red. You think anyone will believe you over us? We're respected members of society. You're a divorced single mother working freelance jobs. Truth doesn't care about social standing, I replied. Your legacy ends with this moment, unless you change. Charles threw $100 bill on the table and stormed out. Eleanor lingered, leaning close to whisper, You always needed drama to feel important. I didn't flinch, didn't follow, just watched as she glided away, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. Only when they were gone did I allow my hands to shake, releasing the tension I'd been holding. I took several deep breaths, then gathered my materials and headed for the exit. As I approached the valet stand, a young attendant handed me an envelope. This was left for you, ma'am. No sender, no markings, just my name scrawled in that familiar handwriting. I waited until I was alone in my car to open it. Inside was a Polaroid photograph of Lily at school that morning, taken from a distance while she played at recess. The timestamp in the corner confirmed it had been taken just hours ago. The reverse side bore 5 simple words. Still think you're safe? My blood turned to ice, then fire. They had crossed from manipulation into something far more sinister. They were watching my child, threatening her. I started the car with shaking hands and pulled into traffic, mind racing. They wouldn't stop. This wasn't just about control anymore, it was about punishment. I had defied them, embarrassed them, challenged their authority. In their world, that required consequences, but they had forgotten something crucial. I wasn't the same frightened girl they had raised to doubt herself. I wasn't the woman who had accepted their conditions in exchange for approval. I was a mother now. And there was nothing I wouldn't do to protect my child. As I drove home to Lily, who was safe with Jessica for the afternoon, I made a decision. If they wanted escalation, I'd give them exposure. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd shine a light so bright on their tactics that they'd never recover. They thought they knew me. They thought they could control me. But they had no idea what I was capable of when my daughter's safety was at stake. The war had officially begun, and I had no intention of losing. They thought they could control the narrative. But they forgot I had the truth. And the truth is louder than inheritance. The Polaroid of Lily at recess burned in my hand as I drove straight to Jessica's apartment. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was surveillance. Intimidation. A direct threat to my child. I didn't feel fear. I felt protective fury ignite in my chest. My hands had stopped shaking, steadied by newfound resolve. I pulled over, quickly photographed the Polaroid and sent it to Nora, Jessica, and my backup legal contact with the message, "Escalation. Need immediate action." By the time I reached Jessica's place to pick up Lily, I had formulated a plan. This wasn't just about defending anymore. It was time to counterattack. "How was dinner with the ice people?" Jessica asked quietly after Lily had run off to gather her things. "They've crossed every line," I whispered, showing her the Polaroid. "They're watching her at school." Jessica's face hardened. "What do you need?" "Coverage for tomorrow morning. I need to meet with the school principal before classes start." The next day, I installed motion sensor security lights around our apartment, a dual-camera video doorbell, and set up a remote access security app on my phone. Then I drove to Lily's school for my emergency meeting with Principal Vasquez. "This is a custody situation turning dangerous," I explained, showing her the Polaroid. "I need to update the restricted pickup list and establish security protocols immediately." To her credit, Principal Vasquez took the threat seriously. We implemented a staff watch list and emergency codes. The school counselor, Ms. Riggs, gently spoke with Lily after class to assess her emotional state. Thankfully, she showed no anxiety, only confusion about why Grandma and Grandpa had sent such a fancy dress. Working in parallel, I began creating a digital document archive I called The Pattern. It included screenshots of text threats, the timeline of events, photos of the hidden dress notes, Eric's recorded confession, Aubrey's statement, and the court pre-filings. Nora confirmed these qualified as preemptive legal self-defense if Charles and Eleanor proceeded with their custody filing. I also drafted a personal blog post and recorded a video diary testimonial, which Jessica's filmmaker cousin helped edit. We titled it, "The Dress My Parents Used to Poison My Daughter." The video featured close-ups of the dress, the hidden notes, time-stamped messages, and my emotional voiceover explaining the psychological manipulation. I held off posting it, waiting to see the Whitakers' next move. 3 days after our confrontation at the Langridge, Eric texted me, "Can we talk?" We met at a public coffee shop. He looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot. "I feel sick," he admitted, unable to meet my gaze. "They manipulated me too. I didn't know they were watching Lily at school." I felt no sympathy, just calculated opportunity. "Prove it. Sign a notarized affidavit detailing the bribery." He agreed immediately. The document he signed would legally destroy any weight the Whitakers' court petition held. It was a small victory, but significant. The next day, my phone exploded with notifications. Charles had filed an emergency petition for temporary visitation and psychological evaluation, claiming I was emotionally unstable and restricting essential familial contact. Nora immediately counterfiled for defamation, parental alienation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Then the attack went public. An online gossip site posted an article titled, "Estranged Daughter Hiding Grandchild from Philanthropic Boston Family." The source was listed as Anonymous Family Insider, clearly Eleanor. The accusations ranged from mental illness to embezzlement. "They're trying to control the narrative," Nora explained. "It's time to fight back publicly." With her blessing, I posted my video and article across multiple platforms. Jessica's social media reach amplified the post, and in under 72 hours, the video hit 600,000 views. Public sentiment overwhelmingly sided with me. "This is manipulation disguised as love," one commenter wrote. Others shared similar stories of toxic family control. The hashtag "Saw Caught Poisoned with Love" started trending. The real-world consequences for my parents came swiftly. Avonlea's Children's Boutique, who had made the dress, issued a public statement confirming that Eleanor Whitaker had been banned after they learned the dress was altered post-purchase. Charles was pressured to resign from a local charity board after the backlash. Eleanor's socialite friends began distancing themselves, tarnished by association. Their lawyer withdrew from their case, citing moral conflict. Through it all, I kept Lily largely unaware of the public battle. One evening, as we sat making paper stars for her bedroom ceiling, she asked me directly about her grandparents. "Are they bad people, Mommy?" I chose my words carefully. Sometimes even family forget how to love without control. Until they remember, we love them from far away. She nodded, accepting this explanation with the simple wisdom of childhood. We established new rituals to replace the family connections she'd never truly had. Friday night pancakes, drawing art together, writing one thing we were proud of each week. I thought perhaps the worst was behind us. The court date was approaching, and our case was strong. Then, on Monday morning, a thick envelope arrived from Charles's estate lawyer. Inside was a letter revoking my inheritance, effective immediately. A yellow post-it was attached, bearing my father's handwriting. "You're cut off. We choose legacy over weakness." I stood in my kitchen, the morning light streaming through the window, and felt something unexpected. Relief. They thought this would devastate me. They thought money was the ultimate weapon. But in cutting me from their will, they had unwittingly severed the last thread that bound me to their toxic legacy. I placed the letter in my evidence file, then called Nora. "They've played their final card," I said. "Let's end this." They tried to take everything: my money, my motherhood, my mind. But in the end, the only thing they truly lost was me. I read the inheritance letter one more time before filing it away with all the other evidence. The official language was cold and precise. I had been removed from the Whitaker family estate for conduct unbecoming of a family representative and damage to the family name. A strange calm settled over me. They thought legacy was money. I thought legacy was freedom. April 23rd arrived with clear skies and a steady resolve in my chest. The courthouse loomed large and imposing, but I walked in with my head high, Nora beside me. We'd prepared meticulously, all collected evidence organized, Eric's affidavit notarized, Aubrey's testimony secured, documentation of the online defamation compiled. Jessica, Lily's school counselor, and even Principal Vasquez had agreed to testify if needed. Charles and Eleanor arrived with a new lawyer, their third, after two others had withdrawn. They looked polished as always, but something had changed. There was a brittleness to their composure, a fracture in the perfect facade they'd maintained for decades. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed our evidence methodically. When she reached the photos of the dress notes, she looked up at my parents with undisguised disapproval. "In my 30 years on the bench," she said, "I have seen many custody disputes, but I have rarely seen such calculated attempts to manipulate a child against her parent." Charles attempted to interject, but the judge silenced him with a raised hand. "The court finds no evidence whatsoever of parental unfitness. On the contrary, Ms. Quinn has demonstrated remarkable resilience and appropriate protective measures in the face of what can only be described as psychological warfare. Her ruling was decisive, full physical and legal custody retained by me, with a 3-year restraining order preventing Charles and Eleanor from contacting either me or Lily. Any further attempts would result in civil penalties and potentially criminal prosecution. Eleanor actually fainted briefly in the courtroom, a dramatic flourish that failed to garner sympathy. Charles stormed out, yelling over his shoulder, "You're nothing without our name." But he was wrong. I was everything without their name. I was free. 3 months later, we celebrated Lily's belated birthday with a small gathering at the Portland Planetarium. The space-themed party featured telescope tours and a cake decorated like a galaxy. Lily glowed with joy, running with her friends, no longer tethered to the invisible tension that had surrounded us. I gave her a framed drawing I'd made of the two of us standing beneath a starry sky, with the caption, "Our universe, just us." Life rebuilt itself in unexpected ways. My design business actually boomed due to the viral attention my story had received. I was invited to speak on a podcast about parental manipulation, which led to a publishing offer for a memoir. The advance was enough to move us to a slightly larger apartment with a tiny balcony where Lily could stargaze. I even started dating again, carefully, but with more confidence. My emotional boundaries were clearer than they'd ever been. Ben Tran, a trauma-informed art therapist I met through a client, asked me out for coffee. Unlike anyone else I'd dated, he never asked for permission to fix me. He just listened. It was refreshing to be seen rather than assessed. Jessica and I created a small support group for others escaping toxic family structures. We hosted monthly dinners and kid-friendly events, building the community neither of us had growing up. 1 year after the court hearing, a package arrived at our door. Inside was a small velvet box and a note in Eleanor's handwriting. "One day she'll know what you cost her." The box contained a locket with a photo of Lily as a toddler, smiling with Eleanor. I didn't hesitate. I burned it that night in a small ceremony of release. Sitting on our apartment balcony later that evening, watching Lily draw constellations with chalk on the concrete floor, I felt a profound sense of peace. They had tried to wrap poison in ribbons, but they failed to understand that real love doesn't require strings, or signatures, or silence. "Mommy, come look at my solar system," Lily called, breaking my reverie. I walked over and held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her warm, solid presence in my arms. "You know, you are the brightest star I've ever known," I whispered. She beamed up at me, unaware of how fiercely she had been fought for, how completely she was loved. Someday I would tell her the full story, but not yet. For now, it was enough that she was safe, happy, and free from the toxic legacy that had nearly claimed us both. As the stars began to appear in the soft dusk light, I smiled to myself. They had severed the inheritance. I had rewritten the legacy.